This has been on Breaking News. I'm Ben Meiselas, and this is your breaking news. The war in Iran that Donald Trump instigated, it is spiraling out of control right now. Gulf states are absolutely furious at Donald Trump and his regime in the United States. They feel utterly betrayed right now, and they're thinking about should they be engaging in a regional security arrangement with Iran at this point, because the U.S., for all of its bravado and promises and Donald Trump demanding quid pro quo tributes to Trump companies, which these Middle East nations thought they were buying security for themselves, that air of security has been completely shattered. Even with the most powerful military force in the world, and nobody disputes the United States had that. And again, I think I'm speaking in past tense because I'm not sure we have that right now. But even if we had that, not being prepared and rushing into a war because Donald Trump was told that Netanyahu was going to invade first. So the U.S. rushes into war and doesn't heed the warnings of the Arab nations that clearly stated what will unfold if you do that is Iran will attack all of the neighboring Arab nations. They will shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has developed these very advanced drones that they are giving to the Russians in Ukraine, the Shahid drones that are very difficult to shoot down now based on some of the advancements. Ballistic missile developments by Iran, cluster munitions by Iran that have been developed that makes it harder for the billion-dollar U.S. systems to work. The THAAD and the Patriot systems, which are billion-dollar systems with million-dollar missiles trying to shoot at $20,000 drones, you can see how very quickly that is a recipe that is unworkable. The markets right now in the U.S. are crashing. The oil market right now continues to surge. Iran has made it clear that their goal is $200 per barrel oil, which would mean at a minimum people paying $5 to $6 a gallon here in the United States. The Iranian foreign minister and National Security Council leader are out there saying things like, yeah, it's very easy to start a war, but if you think we're going to end this anytime soon, you are mistaken. And they understand that this is now a war of attrition. They have made good on their threats regarding the Strait of Hormuz. They've shot down, or they've shot at 5 major tankers just over the past 48 hours, 14 tankers since the war had begun and Donald Trump invaded Iran. Off of the coast of Iraq, we saw during a ship-to-ship transfer of these major, massive fuel ships, there was a Marshall Island flagship, which is actually owned by the United States, and a Malta flagship that belonged to Greece, doing a ship-to-ship fuel transfer. That was hit by Iran, that American ship burning. You had the 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, kind of in the Anchorage area, shot at by Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz is essentially closed. Our Navy is unable to help or assist any of these ships getting through, despite Donald Trump saying the Strait of Hormuz is safe. Everybody pass through. Everything is going great here. That's actually not what's going on the ground. Iran is using its unmanned vessels that are being used. They have these drones, these Shahids in the air, but then they have the unmanned vessels in the sea that they've been developing, that they are deploying, making it too dangerous to get out of the Strait of Hormuz. So then you look to the Red Sea, which is closer to Yemen, and the Houthis now are thinking about working with Iran, other kind of Iranian proxies, to potentially, that's going to be the next big story, what's happening in the Red Sea as well, because ships are now trying to get to the Red Sea because the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. So they go to the Red Sea. Watch what's going to happen there. Meanwhile, while we know that Russia is out there clearly helping Iran and China is helping Iran, the Russians, their main leadership was in Miami. They were in Miami 24 hours ago. You had Kirill Dmitriev, you had Ushakov meeting with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and they're out there bragging about it. Kirill Dmitriev, the main Russian guy, is out there, their main envoy. Thank you, Steve, Jared, and Josh, for a productive meeting. And Steve Witkoff, who butchered the negotiations with Iran, didn't even understand the technical details of what Iran was saying or what the mediator from Oman that the United States had selected was even saying, because there was actually a deal that was offered, as the foreign minister of Oman made clear when he went on TV back on February 27th to tell the world, we've got a deal. And the deal is just need some technical fixes on Monday, but we basically got a deal. So you had Witkoff and Kushner. And why is Kushner there? Who appointed this guy? Kushner and who are these people? For real. I mean, like, who the hell are they? Trump's real estate and son-in-law are out there doing these negotiations. And that's one of the contributing factors to us being in this unlawful war against Iran. I mean, how utterly despicable is that? But the Russians are there, and the Russians are in Miami, and they're talking about economic cooperation deals with Trump. At the same time, they're helping Iran kill Americans, hit American interests. They're loading Iran with coordinates and supplies, right? America's removing sanctions from Russia, right now. And America's talking about economic cooperation with Russia and helping them. And Russia's been benefiting immensely from all of this. America's bailed out Russia, which had its economy failing as a result of this. And you know who's also moving water through the Strait of Hormuz? You know who's doing it? Iran. Never have they got more water out. Never have they got more oil through the Strait of Hormuz. They're exporting about 13.7 million barrels of crude oil since the war began. You know who else is getting it through? China. So Iran is allowing its allies to utilize its oil. It's enriching itself, which in turn allows it to build more drones and strike the U.S. And now we have this war of attrition that Donald Trump never planned for. If you just look around in the region, Kuwait residential buildings are being shot, more Bahraini oil facilities being shot, more Kuwaiti oil depots and residential areas being shot, more ships in the Strait of Hormuz being attacked. And yes, the United States and Israel are attacking Tehran. Yes, they're attacking Iran. We know that also there have been these devastating strikes on elementary schools, which our military has now confirmed 150 little girls have been killed as a result of this, which the Trump regime tried to cover up. I mean, how despicable is that? And Donald Trump's like, I don't know. I want to show this clip, though, here very quickly. This is Donald Trump speaking to Local 12 in Cincinnati right here, where Donald Trump's bragging about how good things are. Let's play this clip of Trump on Local 12 Cincinnati yesterday, bragging about everything's amazing, he says. Let's play it.
We're doing a great job. There's never been a better year for a president. I mean, I've been rated. There has never been a better year for a president, first year, than what we had. That includes the stoppage of 8 wars with a 9th to come. And what we've done, the economy is roaring. It's phenomenal. That's why I'm here. This is an excursion, a little excursion, and I think it's only that. And in that little time, that short period of time, we've taken care of business. We took care of a country that was very dangerous, very bad, would have had a nuclear weapon if it weren't for me and the B-2 bombers and what we did not very long ago. They would have had a nuclear weapon, and we would have had levels of problem that nobody has ever seen before.
Got a crowd in Northern Kentucky.
I want to bring in Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries with us here on this live. Leader Jeffries, it's great to see you here live with everybody. I showed a clip there of Donald Trump in Cincinnati. We also saw Donald Trump's speech in Kentucky And in that speech, he was barely coherent. He claimed that the war was won. He said the Strait of Hormuz is excellent and that everything's going according to plan. He looked and behaved demented, and we know everything's a lie. I want to get your reaction to that, Leader Jeffries.
Well, Donald Trump is a disaster. This guy has been completely and totally unqualified since the moment he first burst onto the national stage, unfortunately, about 10 years ago. And it's only gotten worse. And certainly the context of what the country and the world are now dealing with is toxic and extreme. This war is a failure. It's a war of choice. We've already lost 7 service members, heroes, and patriots. Billions of dollars are being spent to drop bombs in the Middle East. The president is unwilling to spend a dime to actually make healthcare more affordable or reduce the grocery bills of everyday Americans. School children have been killed because of erroneous information. We also know gas prices are through the roof, and war has exploded all across the Middle East from a person, Donald Trump, who as a candidate said he was not going to get us into another endless war of choice in the Middle East. And so he's been a failure. Republicans have been a failure. And to the extent that we need regime change at this moment in time, it is going to come in November.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are saying and are happy to hear you say that the real regime change that is needed is the Trump regime and frankly, the GOP regime as well. They're on a retreat right now, or they've been on a retreat in Doral in Miami at Donald Trump's resort, where they've been partying right now during this disastrous war. They've been living it up in the Trump ballroom out there, which is just so utterly offensive. And I think, though, a lot of people have been paying attention, though, to this retreat and what's been going on there and saying, you know, it's not only tone deaf, it's consistent with their behavior in the past. But I just think even some MAGA people and Republican people are looking at this like, what the hell is going on here? What do you make of this GOP retreat, Leader Jeffries?
That's incredible to me. They're down at Donald Trump's luxury golf club, partying with each other and denying reality. Donald Trump continues to pretend as if the affordability crisis is a hoax. And now they're trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the American people by suggesting that they should no longer talk about mass deportation. Republicans are the party of mass deportation. They're the ones who've actually decided that they're going to spend taxpayer dollars not to make life more affordable for the American people, but to brutalize and kill them, as was the case with Renee Nicole and Alex Preddy, and to violently target law-abiding immigrant families. It's one of the reasons why their immigration policies are now perceived to be a failure, along with, of course, the failure on the economy, the failure on healthcare, the failure on nutritional assistance, the failure to uphold the rule of law. As you've consistently pointed out, Ben, this is a Trump cartel. This is the largest pay-to-play scheme that any presidential administration has ever run. And so that's why we're determined to make sure we do something meaningful to lower the high cost of living on affordability, but at the same time, continue to bring about accountability, as was recently done with the termination of Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Although that's not over, because we're going to continue to pursue the corruption that she clearly engaged in as well.
You mentioned that this entire Trump regime, by the way, which, as you mentioned, there needs to be a regime change right there. But this entire regime is a pay to play scheme. But even the people who paid to play in the Middle East are saying, when do we get to play? We paid. Where the hell is the defense? You wanted us to do World Liberty Financial, so we gave you hundreds of millions. You wanted us to do this. You wanted us to do that. You wanted Trump hotels. We gave you all of that. And now you rushed into this war without listening to us, without consulting us. And now we've heard that these Middle East nations are talking about security arrangements with Iran and with China. So we have a reordering of a world order post-World War II, except right now, America's being cut out because despite having the most powerful military in the world, undisputed that we had that or that exists, But the fact that it was done in such an unprepared Trumpian way has turned the whole world against us right now.
It's absolutely correct. And as we've seen in prior conflicts, including, of course, Iraq and Afghanistan, military might is not enough if the people who are actually directing the war don't know what the hell they're doing in terms of the civilians in suits in Washington, D.C. And that's what we see as it relates to Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and all of the people who have gotten us into this war of choice without any justification. They've got no plans, no objective, and no idea how to get us out of this situation that they themselves got us into. And as you've pointed out, you now have more than a dozen countries in the Middle East who are under attack from Iran and are trying to figure out, okay, if the United States doesn't really know how to de-escalate a conflict that they raced into, they're considering other options. So Donald Trump, as the American people know, hasn't made this country safer. The American people correctly have come to the conclusion he's actually making us more vulnerable. And this guy, by the way, doesn't even know the difference between friend or foe. It seems like he had a friendly conversation with Vladimir Putin, of all people, who apparently is providing intelligence to Iranians to be able to target U.S. military servicemen and women. And rather than admonish, punish, make sure there are consequences for what Vladimir Putin and Russia appear to be doing, this guy, Donald Trump, continues to go after Ukraine, who's our ally, partnering with Western Europe, trying to push back against Russian aggression. The whole thing is extraordinary and out of control. It's one of the reasons why, though, the American people have been rising up and Republicans have been losing elections literally for 15 consecutive months because the American people are done with the extremism. And we as Democrats are going to continue to lean into focusing on the issues that matter, driving down the high cost of living, fixing our broken healthcare system, and yes, cleaning up corruption wherever it may be found.
You know, Leader Jeffries, look, I obviously am no fan of Donald Trump's, but when America is in a war, even if it's a war that I believe is unlawful and I believe is disastrous, I still root for leadership qualities and clarity. Like, let me say that, so that American people know what's going on. And so when Donald Trump was giving the speech in Kentucky and people are looking for just some level of clarity, a fraction of moral clarity, this is what we hear. Salty, let's play this clip.
Good. The only thing I admired about Barack Hussein Obama, which was nothing actually, but the only thing is the way he bobbed down. Remember, he'd bob. Hey, you talk about unpresidential. He's bobbing. And I couldn't believe that he made it without at least a noticeable major fall. But Biden was the opposite. Biden couldn't even walk up the stairs. He fell.
So, Leader Jeffries, when I watch this speech, in my opinion, there's something seriously wrong with this person, cognitively, physically. This person's not right, and I say this in the utmost seriousness. There's truly something, and it's staring us in the face. Before we go, I just want you to maybe just address what we're observing right now, because I feel like we're just being gaslit by a lot of media to believe that this is normal, and it isn't.
Absolutely abnormal. From the perspective of someone who's a New Yorker, we've known there's something seriously wrong with this individual for decades. He's been in our face, but the deterioration has certainly accelerated. And now it's frightening for the American people, understandably, because this guy is the commander in chief at this moment. And it's just going to be incumbent to make sure that we can erect as many ironclad guardrails around this guy. And as you've pointed out, look, when we're at war, we are going to continue to pray for the safety and security of our troops, our brave servicemen and women, all who are in harm's way. But at the same period of time, we have a responsibility to make sure we're defending the best interests of the American people, the country, the rule of law, the Constitution, all of which Donald Trump continues to run over. And he's not offering a single coherent reason for the policies, the extremism that he's jamming down the throats of the American people, causing folks to reasonably question what's wrong with this guy.
Leader Jeffries, I know you got to go in 90 seconds. Address the midterms, though. A lot of people want to hear your perspective of it. You know, it's so critical, I think, that Article 1 behave like Article 1 and be a check against this regime. Talk to us about it.
Absolutely. You know, James Madison once made the observation when they were contemplating the creation of the House of Representatives that it should be in intimate sympathy with the American people and to function Congress as a rival to the executive branch. And that's not what's happening right now. House Republicans continue to bury their heads in the sand, and they act like reckless rubber stamps to Donald Trump's extreme agenda. Enough. In order for us to have a check and balance, for us to block and tackle on behalf of the American people, push back against this extremism, and actually spend taxpayer dollars in ways that are designed to make the lives of the American people more affordable, Democrats are going to need to rout Republicans and take back control of the House. And the good news is we're only 3 seats short, narrowest majority that Republicans have since any party since 1930. We're going to take back the House with the support of the American people and then put the American people first, not the Trump cartel.
Democratic Leader Jeffries, appreciate you joining us on this live. Thank you very much. And a lot of people are paying attention right now to these midterms, especially. And I think you mentioning regime change of Trump is something that I saw in the chat that people are saying. I mean, for real, like this is something that I think in our worst nightmare, you know, people would say it's this bad. It's worse than people. It's Leader Jeffries. Thank you so much.
So much, man.
Leader Hakeem Jeffries, everybody. All right, let's get back into it. Let me show you moments ago what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said when he was in it. By the way, you know that, like, I feel strongly about the Trump regime cabinet in general, and I think they're all like loathsome creatures. Like I don't know whether it is, I don't know whether it is Howard Lutnick on Epstein Island. I've never been, nor would I ever be on such a despicable person's island. Well, you went to the island. We've got photographs, but I brought my kids. You brought your kids and my friends' kids. So you were on the island with your kids and you brought your friends' kids, 16, 13, 12, 11. I'm not sure, Lutnick, you're making up strong case for yourself. My nanny. Okay, Lutnick. Thank you, Lutnick. All right. I don't know. You got Pam Bondi. The Dow is 50,000. The Dow is 50,000. We're doing so good. Why don't you look at the Dow right now? Pam Bondi, number 1. And number 2, you were getting questions about child sex trafficking cover-ups. And you're going, the Dow is 50,000. So you've got Pete Hegseth. We're going to do lethality, death and destruction from the air rains down. And that's what we do here in this administration. Lethality. Before it was woke policies. Now it is lethality. That's what we do. That's my Pete Hegseth impression, right there. I mean, this whole group, but then you've got Scott Bessent. Of course, we plan for it. We plan for everything. Americans everyone's rich. Everybody has a pink mansion that is a replica of the Barbie Malibu mansion in the United States. We all have that, don't we? We are all that rich, aren't we? The American people can deal with it, huh? I mean, dude, Bessent's like the worst of them all right there. So let me show you what he said moments ago. Here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Let's play it.
You starting to think, if this does keep persisting as it is, that the Navy has to go into the Strait of Hormuz to help ships get through, which would have a big effect on
look, that was always in our planning, that there's the chance that U.S. Navy or perhaps an international coalition will be escorting oil tankers through. There are, in fact, tankers coming through now, Iranian tankers, I believe some Chinese flag tankers have come through. So we know that they have not mined the straits.
And was that what you were just discussing in the Situation Room?
We were discussing a plethora of things.
And is it your belief that the volume of ships going through the Strait of Hormuz will be improving immediately from now?
It is my belief that as soon as it is militarily possible, the U.S. Navy, perhaps with an international coalition, will be escorting vessels through.
We've always planned for this. We knew from the outset when we would do this that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed, that all of the supply of crude and liquefied natural gas shut down in this. We planned for this, all part of our plan, and that we would then have to use the International Energy Agency, would have to release 400 million barrels. We knew that. That was all part of emergency. We knew there would be the emergency. Then the U.S. would release 174 million, 172 million barrels from our strategic reserves, depleting it by half. We knew that. That's exactly why we didn't fill it up when gas was cheap. That was all. Trust the plan. Trust the plan. Part of our plan was to tariff the world, get everybody pissed off at us as well. It was also to not consult with the Middle East nations before the war. This was all part of an elaborate plan right here that we all wanted to do. We actually wanted to further piss off people who were on our side in Iran, all part of the plan. So what we did was, when there were democracy protests in January, our plan was to tell them we've got their back. Because that's what you do when you want to help people. You say you got your back, but you lie to them. You make them go out there and protest. And guess what? Your ships aren't even in the area to help them, because your ships are off the coast of Venezuela, where you invaded a month before that. So you told the people to protest. They get massacred. You don't help them at all. You brag about saving 700 people from being hung. You brag about that. And then you go and do an invasion a month and a half later, because Netanyahu says that he's going to attack first. So you gotta get Bibi's back right there. Why would America say no to Bibi? Why would we do that? They're more powerful than us. Why would the United States say, if Bibi says he's going to do it? That was all part of the plan, all part of the plan. And then what we're going to do when we launch it is we're going to bomb all of these civilian infrastructure, just piss off the Iranian people, target an elementary school, kill 165 children, 150 little girls, then deny it and say Iran used tomahawks against themselves, shoot at their desalination plants to try to screw with their water supply, shoot out their oil depots, blow it up so that there are nuclear clouds that go over Iran. And part of the plan was to then get Mojtaba, the son of the Ayatollah, in power, who was more extreme than the original Ayatollah and more deadly than his father. Get a younger Ayatollah in there. All part of the plan. This is an elaborate plan that we had. Get Mojtaba in there. Get the Iranian people to rally behind Mojtaba, because as between the U.S. and Israel, or Mojtaba and Donald Trump saying we're going to carve up the map of Iran, Iranian people are menacing and bad, nasty people. Iranians like, I don't know. I mean, we've got Trump on the one hand. We've got that regime. On the other hand, we've got the Islamic Republic regime. Which one are we going? You've got people to rally around Mojtaba. You've solidified the regime's power right now in Iran. Part of the plan is to get the Gulf nations to want security arrangements with Iran. Part of the elaborate plan also is to remove the THAAD missiles from South Korea, to not give the missiles, the Patriots and the THAADs and other military aid to Taiwan. Trust the plan. This is all part of the plan, everybody. Then Kim Jong-un is out there mocking the United States, talking about the missile tests that he's been doing as soon as the U.S. removed its missiles from South Korea. So let's just piss off all of the Asian countries, piss off all the Middle East countries. Before that, part of the plan is also threaten to invade NATO nations like Denmark and say you're going to take over Greenland, but do that, say that Canada's the 51st state, piss them off, but try to pull out of the AUKUS nuclear submarine agreements with Australia. That's all this is what we're doing. So we're seeing, in other words, what we're seeing in real time. If you're wondering, how did Donald Trump bankrupt all of these casinos like this? Except now we're the casinos. This is how he does it. He makes bad decisions worse decisions devastating, devastating situations catastrophic situations nuclear catastrophic, and nuclear catastrophic situations bankrupt. That's how he does it. And then he finds his scapegoat. He blames it on this or that, or you did it, this person did it, that person did it. Blame it on that, come up with a conspiracy theory. He tries to skirt away with his little kind of group, a MAGA group. He makes the money and everybody else holds the bag. And that used to be the contractors, the note holders, all these people. Donald Trump is a lifelong loser. He's a loser in life. His whole life has been a loser. And this is the thing I've always tried to say. He never was a deal maker. He was never some smart guy who made good business moves. He got daddy's money and he lost and he lost and he lost and he screwed people and he screwed people and he sexually assaulted. He was found civilly liable for it. So let me be clear, found civilly liable. He was a sexual predator in his entire life. He was friends with Epstein. He's a sicko. He lived a life of perversion. He lived a life of devastation. He hurt people. He's a predator. He's a sicko, and he surrounds himself with sickos. That's who he is, okay? These are all bad, demented people, demons. He's a demon person, and these are demons he surrounds himself with. Their behavior is as such. The Epstein class, these predators, and they're not even smart. They're dumb also. They're dumb people, and they're doing dumb, dangerous, despicable things. And what we're seeing happen, and I'm not being hyperbolic, all of my predictions have been correct. When people, oh, why are you saying that's going to happen? Why? There's no hyperbole here. This is what's happening. There is currently underway a massive, in fast forward, restructuring of the global world order right now. America has been exposed as utterly weak and unable to protect all of the countries that it claimed it could. That's how we built the ability for America's economy to be the envy of the world. The economy in America, with all of the debt that we have, what is it, 37, 38 by the time Trump's done, and it'll be $60 trillion in debt. America could always go and print more money. People would buy American treasuries because ultimately America's promise was that its power was unmatched. You burst that bubble. You make America a Trump casino and unreliable. And guess what you can't do anymore? You can't just print the paper. You can't keep this debt cycle going as you rake up the debt. It's impossible. The debt cycle was cancerous to begin with. And as everybody talked about the debt crisis and Trump being responsible for 25 to 30% of it, and people go, well, how does it even function if at the end of the day, you have so much debt? Like, how does it exist if you're paying $1 trillion of interest on your debt to people who hold your treasury notes? Well, because it was based on the idea that America can never run out of the money. You can always go and print more money. That's a Ponzi scheme. At some point when people go, hey, isn't this just like Bernie Madoff? Isn't all of this BS, right? And people say, pay up. I don't trust you anymore. That's when it leads to a global collapse. Post-World War II, there was a global world reordering. And right now, what we're seeing here in real time, in fast forward, is that China, Russia, the biggest beneficiaries of that. Right now, these Middle East Arab nations, they're going to make security deals with Iran. They're going to become allied even there. Iran is going to become more powerful than ever right now, along with China and Russia. They're the ones benefiting, right? Europe has to figure out what the hell are we going to do right now, because America under Donald Trump is behaving weak and pathetic, despite what our generals do, despite having the most powerful military, putting these tools in the hand of this demented, vile piece of trash in the Oval Office. He doesn't know how to use these tools. In fact, the tools are too big for him, which he views as toys, it's imploding the United States right now. And he's got this sycophantic cult, right, that looks right out of Jonestown or whatever it is, just drinking the Kool-Aid in Mar-a-Lago, as you heard from Leader Jeffries out there, partying in Doral, Miami right now, as Donald Trump claims we won the war. I mean, just think about that. Think about past presidents, the statements they made, the severity of how they viewed war. And Donald Trump's out there saying we won, we've obliterated them, they don't have any capabilities. They do. They do have, I see their capabilities. Do we have the video last night, Jeremy, of them striking that ship? I think it's a 5-second video that we have of the moment the Marshall Island flagship. Marshall, I won't get into the whole way shipping. They're flagged in different countries that own it, okay? So a Marshall Island flag, that means owned by the U.S. U.S. ship doing a ship-to-ship, an STS, ship-to-ship transfer right now of fuel with a Greek ship. It's always a dangerous maneuver doing ship-to-ship transfers. Iran has unmanned vessels. Boom. Watch what happens. Let's play it. Yeah, that's what's going on right there. That's what's going on right there. All right. My producers are saying we have to do a quick ad break. Let's do a quick ad break right now. Reminder, hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers right now. We got a lot more to discuss when we get back. Show you some Senate hearings. We'll talk about what's going on here domestically as well. Quick break. We'll be right back. Thanks. Big audience today. We'll see you shortly.
All right, let me tell you about something I've actually been using lately, OneSkin. I'm someone who's tried a lot of skincare over the years, and what first caught my attention about this brand is that it was founded by a team of PhD longevity scientists. This isn't just another moisturizer. It's skincare built on real research. I've been using their products with the OS1 peptide, and what I like about it is how simple it is to add into your routine. The texture is great, it absorbs quickly, and it doesn't feel heavy or greasy. After a few weeks, I noticed my skin just looked healthier and smoother overall. That OS1 Eye Topical and OS1 Face have become my daily go-tos. What makes OneSkin different is that their patented OS1 peptide target senescent cells, which are a major driver of wrinkles, fine lines, and loss of elasticity. That's actually been validated in multiple peer-reviewed clinical studies. The products are dermatologist-tested, safe for sensitive skin, and free from over 1,500 harsh ingredients. Born from over a decade of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using code Meidas at oneskin.co/Meidas. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Meidas. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Again, that's 15% off at oneskin.co/Meidas with code Meidas, MEIDAS. You ever walk out of a doctor's appointment feeling like you learned absolutely nothing? Like they just say you're fine, maybe tell you to drink some water, and that's it. No real data, no real plan. That's honestly why I'm fascinated by what Superpower is doing. Instead of guessing about your health, they actually give you information that you need to understand your body. Superpower sends a licensed professional to your home, or you could visit a nearby lab, and it's one simple test that measures over 100 biomarkers. That's way more than you normally get. Then everything shows up in their app, breaking down things like your heart health, liver, thyroid, hormones, metabolism, vitamin and mineral levels, and even environmental toxins. And for me, the biggest thing is finally having a real plan, not guessing about supplements, diet, or sleep, or what you should actually be doing for your health. Superpower gives personalized recommendations, lifestyle guidance, and even tracks your true biological age so you can see how your health changes over time. It's not just a one-time snapshot either. Every test builds on the last one, so you could actually track progress year after year. Plus, they have an on-demand clinician team to answer questions, which is huge. And here's the wild part, Superpower used to cost $499, but right now it's just $199 for the full experience. Make this the year you stop guessing about your health with Superpower. Not only did Superpower reduce their price to just $199, but for a limited time, our listeners get an additional $20 off with code Meidas. Head to superpower.com and use code Meidas at checkout for $20 off your membership. That's MEIDAS. After you sign up, they'll ask how you heard about them, so make sure to mention this podcast to support the show.
Welcome back to Ben on Breaking News. You guys like the new show, Ben on Breaking News? We break down all the latest and the greatest of everything that's happening. And sadly, it's not the greatest right now. It's pretty dire times caused by the Trump regime, where more than ever, we just need factual analysis about what's going on in this country right now, because where this Trump regime is leading us to or not leading us to is deeply problematic. I mean, I just want you to take a look at what went down on the USS Gerald Ford today. There was a fire in the laundry room, and that's what they're telling us. There was a fire in the laundry room, pretty serious fire. Also, there were 2 individuals who were injured, non-combat related injuries. Apparently, they're in stable condition. But U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet and CENTCOM confirmed that the USS Gerald Ford had this fire. It originated in laundry spaces, was non-combat related, and this is one of the main ships, by the way, that's out there. I think it was in the Red Sea most recently. It's a $13.3 billion ship. I think, we've been covering both the Lincoln and the Ford. They've been having a lot of issues. But it's actually expected that they'd have a lot of issues because, I mean, if you look at the Gerald Ford, it's been basically on active duty now since 2025. I mean, we're almost going on a year of it engaging in a lot of different missions. And you have these members of the Navy who have been away from family members for a very long period of time. They've missed births, they've missed funerals, they missed birthday parties. And if you remember the reports that we were doing here back in early February, it's why we pay attention to things here well in advance of when they become issues. Remember, we were doing reports on the sewage issues within these ships and how there was very low morale and how there was like even, the ships, the plumbing was all screwed up. And so there was like feces and urine all over the place. I showed you those photos of what it looked like in February. And so the ship had to, go and take a stop in the Mediterranean to deal with plumbing issues. There's a lot of issues like that going on. There's no sign of, especially if this war continues, when these ships are going to be back. They're not meant to be out there this long, other than like Vietnam era stuff. These level of deployments are unsustainable. And these things start to go wrong on ships of this size. Even the most advanced $13.3 billion, ships like this, right? Iran knows this. Iran knows this. And they're very much aware that if there's a war of attrition and they've amassed this huge inventory of Shahed drones, they can turn out new ones every day, cheap to make, 20,000. And their entire economy is built with the ability to churn out these drones with private-public cooperation, ballistic missiles that they're able to do. These unmanned vessels, right? The drones in the water, basically, they've got all. This is how warfare has been developing. We could have looked to see how Ukraine was protecting itself from Russia's invasion, right? Russia had big military, tanks, lots of weapon systems, outdated, sure, but lots of big weapon systems, right? And Ukraine was able to use a form of asymmetrical warfare with the drones, with the unmanned vessels. Then it had to develop its own anti-drone technologies, right? And yes, Ukraine did rely on a lot of the javelins and systems provided by the Americans, although under Trump, America started removing a lot of those systems. But even with taking away those systems, Ukraine on its own was able to develop anti-drone technologies and things like that. Last August, Zelensky tried to help Donald Trump. That was the same time Donald Trump was holding the summit in Alaska with Putin, right? Where Trump rolled out the red carpet, made our troops go on their knees and quite literally kiss Putin's shoes. Remember the photo of our troops on their knees for Putin? One of the most despicable photos, if not the most despicable photo, most embarrassing photos I've ever seen in United States history. By the way, that will be in the history books of Russia forever, right? The same way we have Mr. Gorbachev take down that wall, they're going to show the moment Putin strolled into Alaska and Trump made our troops bend down on their knees. It's quite like the humiliation that Trump has put our nation through is second to none, unprecedented in the history of our nation. And the fact that there are people out there who support this stuff still, who pretend to be hawks or this or that, it's like the level of humiliation is just next level. But Zelensky tried to help. Zelensky provided options, anti-drone technology, a whole presentation to Donald Trump, and Trump said, I don't care. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see it. Apparently now Eric Trump is an investor in a anti-drone or drone company. And so now they want some of the Ukrainian technology and some of their intellectual property for Trump's kids' business. So Zelensky, I think, is providing some support because as Zelensky rightfully sees it, put it this way, in Ukraine, they view what's taking place as World War III. And again, I don't mean to scare you. I don't mean to sound hyperbolic or, the world is on fire. The world is on fire. Zelensky views what's taking place now as a two-front war. So Zelensky also wants to help the US and Europe in the Middle East, even out of just self-interest as well, because Russia helping Iran and China helping Iran in the war against the United States helps strengthen Russia in its war against Ukraine by empowering Iran to force weapon systems to be moved out of Ukraine, to be focused in the Middle East region, allow Putin to engage in more strikes on Ukraine, to try to remove some of the defensive structure from Ukraine, move that to the Middle East. And Zelensky recognizes, of course, that that's part of the two-front war that's taking place. So Zelensky's tried to help Trump. Trump rejected it. And instead, what is the Trump regime doing? They met in Miami, as I mentioned before, with Ushakov and Kirill Dmitriev, who you see right there, the special envoy from Russia to the United States, meeting with Steve Witkoff, and they're discussing economic cooperation between the United States and Russia. And it's like our regime here in the United States is just so utterly stupid. I mean, it's demented. It is, or alternatively, they're just literally working with Putin, which is another viable option because Putin and Russia are outwardly supporting Ayatollah Manjabi. I mean, they're saying they're supporting him. They've made statements. We support the new Ayatollah. We stand in solidarity with them. It's obvious also China is helping Iran find coordinates for the United States and American interests throughout the Middle East, right? They're being supported in their efforts there. Zelensky's like trying to even help. Hey, because also Zelensky knows helping in the Middle East helps Ukraine because this war turning in Iran's favor is ultimately immensely helpful to Russia because Russia is able to then sell its oil at higher prices, right? Especially as the Trump regime is removing sanctions against Russia. And, it's satisfying a lot of geopolitical interests of Russia right now, targeting their enemies in the Middle East. But Trump's out there like meeting, and this is why Russia sent its people to Miami, because they realize how stupid the Trump regime is. And then they talk about economic cooperation and doing deals together. It's like doing deals together. The Russians are helping Iran kill American soldiers right now. What are we talking about? They're instrumental in Iran's mosaic defense structure right now. That's what's going on. And Trump shunning Zelensky and then meeting with Putin is like the biggest FU to Zelensky, who's trying to help. Like, what are we doing? We removed the missile systems from South Korea, the THAAD system. We took them. We promised them. We took them. We're not giving the aid promise to Taiwan. China couldn't be more thrilled. China's also mocking the United States right now in the press. I don't know if you caught it. And I'll show you what the videos China and the videos Iran have been making as well. But China's been saying, well, Donald Trump claims he's coming here in April, but like they're not even making any organized plans for Trump's arrival. And so it's very disorganized and kind of mocking the fact that Trump is so thirsty to be in Beijing and Trump can't even plan a state visit to Beijing. But just think about it. Trump wants to do a state visit to Beijing when we know China is helping Iran, right? And Donald Trump has abandoned, even before the war in Iran, Donald Trump has abandoned giving congressionally appropriated aid to Taiwan. Remember when all the MAGAs used to act like they were China hawks and they were for Taiwan? Remember, like 9 months ago, Trump wouldn't allow the Taiwanese president to travel over U.S. airspace on his way to Central America. So I said, okay, it's obvious that Trump's not going to give this guy military aid. What are we talking about? He's not even letting him fly over the United States. I think he's going to give him military aid. And Xi Jinping knows that all Trump wants is a state visit to China so Trump can get a photo of himself standing in front of the Chinese soldiers who march in lockstep so Trump feels tough. And Trump can say, Xi Jinping's the king. Xi Jinping's the king. So, you know, that's what's going on there right now. But let me show you too. I want to show you what Iran's doing right now and what China's doing to mock the United States right now. So there's an Iranian embassy in The Hague, and they posted this message: in memory of the 168 innocent school children of Manab whose lives were cruelly taken by the most evil people on earth. Their names may fade from the headlines, but they must never fade from our conscience. So Iran is now trolling Trump, who's a troll, on social media, while they also engage in their asymmetrical warfare in the Middle East, bogging the United States down. Here's the video that they released. Let's play it.
We have no issue with civilians.
Why did you attack the Manab school?
Go on, lie, 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 lie. We didn't hit the Manab school. America doesn't have Tomahawk missiles at all. We care deeply about the Iranian people.
And it says Inside Out, Epstein's client right there. By the way, Jeremy, do we have that clip where Trump was asked in front of the White House if he takes responsibility for the U.S. strikes on the Iranian school? Like, just so you know, the video that they made, right? Like, and you go, okay, Ben, what the hell, man? What the hell? You know what, Ben? You know, you're still an American. You're playing Iranian propaganda videos from The Hague on your YouTube channel. What the hell are you doing right here? Well, first, let me just show you what Donald Trump actually said. So that was their video. Here's what really went down when Donald Trump was asked about it. Let's play this clip.
Report shows, a new report says that the military investigation has found that the United States struck the school in Iran. As Commander-in-Chief, do you take responsibility for that?
That is what?
As Commander-in-Chief, do you...
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it.
Are you supposed to help you respond to that?
I don't know about that. Well, I'll tell you who does know about it. I mean, the military generals know about it. We saw testimony today from General Grenkowicz right there. And again, why I want to show you that is I will flag it as, okay, that's an Iranian propaganda video in The Hague. The idea that Iran has an embassy in The Hague while it engaged in a massacre of the protesters. And yes, the Ayatollah is a brutal terroristic regime. All valid points, right? The Trump regime is engaged in also mass propaganda. They're killing girls in elementary schools right now. They're covering up a child sex trafficking ring. And America, I'm reflecting and showing you that to say, when Donald Trump used to say the whole world is laughing at us, when they weren't, could you imagine another country even making a video like that to try to poke the bear of the United? You would never even see that. They're mocking Trump as the Epstein client because they see how weak he is. They see how weak his regime is. It's weakness. And Governor Newsom used to say it's weakness masquerading as strength, but actually it ain't even masquerading. It's weakness masquerading as like a demented weakness. I don't even know how to describe it right now. So here's General Grinkowicz on the Iranian school that was bombed. And Senator Gillibrand from New York is asking the question. And this general, who's the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, the top general in Europe, responds that it was a tragic incident that was the United States. I mean, here's what he says. Let's play it.
Any person who can get satellite access to Google Maps today can see that this was a school. New York Times had no problem getting that data and information for a report today. What do you intend to do at UCOM to make sure your targeting is consistent with American values?
Yeah, Senator, thanks. Over the course of my career, I've as a fighter pilot, I've always done everything I can to avoid civilian harm and civilian casualties. And I would tell you, I'm absolutely committed to that. I know the department is committed to that. And that when tragedies like this happen, it causes us all to reflect and try to improve our processes. I've been involved in the targeting process, both at the tactical and the operational levels throughout my career. And I would tell you, we do have a number of safeguards in the system. Every single time that at the tactical level I was going to release a weapon on a target, I was personally making an assessment as to whether there was any chance of civilian harm. And if there was that proportional to the military necessity of striking the target? At the operational level, both from my time in U.S. Central Command previously and then now at U.S. European Command, I can assure you that we have robust standards that we go through and look to see and update the imagery and update our understanding of the target and refresh the intelligence on a recurring basis to determine the chances of civilian harm and to address any collateral concerns that might be there. So you just know I'm absolutely committed to trying to mitigate that risk.
I appreciate your testimony. I'm highly concerned, however, that Secretary Hegseth does not agree with you. Secretary Hegseth has criticized rules of engagement designed to adhere to the laws of armed conflict and support civilian harm mitigation. Secretary Hegseth has also cut the Civilian Protection Center of Excellence by about 90%.
Whether it turns out that the elementary school was picked as a target by AI, whether that was exactly what Anthropic was warning about, we will have to see. Whether that was done by the sloppy Trump regime people who we see engage in all this other behavior. They picked that elementary school because it was near a military facility, and it had the daughters and children of military officials who went there. The same way we have in the United States tons of schools that are near military facilities here. That's a fairly normal thing, but that was not a military target. That was not a military facility. That had been a school for decades. We knew what that was, but that was picked as part of Hegseth's lethality. Kill everything around the area. And on the first day, they did that. I mean, I'll show you the type of people who are working in this regime. Have you seen, and 404 Media did a great job putting this compilation together, but these Doge goons, you saw their deposition, these muskrats, these Musk people, who were out there making these cuts and saying this is DEI. These are the people who are the real DEI, didn't earn it. The real DEI is in the Trump regime, didn't earn it. And this is who's like running all this stuff. And that this guy I'm going to show you right now, he wasn't involved in this strike. Let me be very clear. But it is people like this. This is the personality type of Pete Hegseth. Hegseth's like this. This is what they think is strong. This is what they think is smart. This is what they think that when they use terms like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're saying the problem with DEI is that it allows minority candidates to get jobs over white men like this. Here, play this clip.
How do you interpret DEI? There was the EO explicitly laid out. The details, I don't remember it off the top of my head. It's okay. I'm asking for your understanding of it. Yeah, my understanding was exactly what was written in the EO. Okay. So can you... I don't remember what was in the EO. So right now, do you have an understanding of what DEI is? Yeah. Okay. So what's your understanding as you sit here today in this deposition? Well, it was exactly what was written in the EO. And so anytime that we would look at a grant through the lens of complying with an executive order, we would just refer back to the EO and assess if this grant had relation to it. Okay. But I guess I'm stepping back from your methodology strictly in terminating the grants. Do you have an understanding as you sit here today of what DEI means? Yeah. Okay. So what's your understanding of what it means? Well, it is exactly what was written in the EO. Okay, so why is a documentary about Holocaust survivors DEI?
Objection.
It's the gender-based story that's inherently discriminatory to focus on this specific group. It's inherently discriminatory to focus on what specific group? The gender-based, so females during the Holocaust. And you believe that that's inherently discriminatory? I'm just saying that's what it's focused on. Sure. But this is related to DEI. Right. But you just used the term inherently discriminatory. What did you mean by that? It's focusing on DEI principles, gender being one of them. So a documentary that's about women.
Yeah. It's people like that didn't earn it, who have, replaced actually competent people. There have been a lot of women military leaders who have been pushed out, a lot of people from minority groups who were leaders in the military who were pushed out, a lot of people who the Trump regime claimed were woke were pushed out of the military. We push out some of our best minds in the military as well. That was, if you almost think about the perfect storm, right? Think about it like this. And Putin couldn't have designed it any better, right? China couldn't have designed this any better. Year one, you spend gutting everything, piece by piece with Doge, right? This cancer that metastasizes within the within our government. And then even when Doge is gone, just the aftermath and all of the firing. So all of our agencies, all of our resources, gutted, right? You start picking the least qualified person for every position. So who do you pick at the health department? The guy who hates health. Who do you pick at the military department? You call it war instead of defense. And then you pick the guy who couldn't even run a military nonprofit and was pushed out for horrific behavior and who has all these accusations against him, right? Who do you put as your commerce secretary? The Epstein Island guy. Who do you put as your your head of DOJ? Pam Bondi, who couldn't do an oral argument at all. Like, who are you putting in these different positions? Like, who you put at the EPA, the guy who hates the environment? Who do you put at the Department of Education? Someone who wants to, kill the Department of Education, right? You rip apart everything. Then within the entities, you purge all of the competent people. You push them out, right? So that's the first year you do that. Then you invade your own country, right? So you have ICE and Border Patrol, Gestapo, terrorize people. Then you do tariffs against the war. Like, you couldn't, if you asked AI, design the perfect scenario for our enemies of what you would do. So then you tariff the world. You create trade wars against everyone, turn all of your allies into enemies, right? Then threaten your NATO allies, weaken NATO, and chip it away. But still, it was all hanging on a thread, but everything was kind of broken. Year one, breaking. Like that's how I would write a book on this, right? Year one, break everything. And that's how they broke everything. Year two, you start off right away, and then you try to break everything. So after everything's broken, now you leave the U.S. kind of exposed. And so you start off, right? We started off the year Venezuela. And I think Venezuela went, I still think it was terrible. Trump never cared about democracy, right? He propped up just the Maduro regime again, so Trump can take oil for himself. But he does Venezuela first. Go to war right away, right? Then you rush into war against Iran, where that right there could be the straw that breaks the proverbial camel's back with all of the things you've done. So now you're left exposed. Your State Department's gutted. You don't have ambassadors in the region. You haven't thought through how you're going to help your Middle East allies. You don't have any allies who want to help you. You already have an economy that's suffering. Even if this war didn't exist, we'd be talking about how bad the economy is right now. So now you have all of these issues that were created during the breaking year. And now you have your war year where you have which I guess here's how I would call chapter 2, kind of or if I was doing a 3-part documentary on the fall of America, because that's what this is. The fall of the United States, destruction of the U.S. from within. That's my first chapter. My second chapter is now, a global reordering through a disastrous, unprepared war, because that's what's happening. I talked about that in the first half of this podcast. And then, episode 3, I think, or however you're going to do it, you'll see what that looks like. You're going to see what that looks like. And it is going to make America look incredibly, incredibly weak. The worst is still yet to come. And I'm not, again, trying to be hyperbolic or scare you. But again, this Ponzi scheme of America's economy being $37 trillion in debt, racking up these massive deficits every year. It depended on the full faith and credit in the United States as a stable actor, and that no matter what, the U.S. was in charge of this global world order. That's what made the economic Ponzi scheme with all of this debt work. Because America could just print more money, or people will still put their money into treasury bonds, and no matter what, that's always safe, right? It's always safe. Well, when the America as the leader in the global world order and as a stable thing, is gone. Well, now people say, okay, well, we don't trust you for that, and if they don't trust the U.S. for that, okay, pay up. What if China right now made a call on all of their debt? What if the European Union made a call on all of their debt right now, right? What if the Middle East did that? What if Canada, who holds trillions of American debt, what if they called? What if Japan did that right now? What if all of that, what if they did that? They're not, because they viewed, if we do that, it's mutually assured destruction. There'll be a worldwide economic depression, the likes of which would make what took place in the 1930s look like peanuts. But now they're at a point where it's happening anyway. And again, I'm not saying this to be inflammatory or to scare you. I just think we have to be clear-eyed and prepared for what is happening. And so much is based on this view, whether it was Trump's tariffs against the world after the Supreme Court ruled against him, he put new tariffs. You're like, well, why aren't things crashing? Because a lot of the markets are based on forward-looking views. And forward-looking views, when you would speak to bankers or all these people, said, yeah, he's a crazy guy, but ultimately he's economically rational when confronted with devastation in the markets. And so we expect him to basically taco. He'll chicken out, he'll adjust, he'll grant enough exceptions where America's economy, because it's so resilient, will still be able to function, and he can't break it. And I would always say to people who would tell that to me, I don't know about that, because if you watch what he's doing, he's really dismantling every layer of it and every level of it. And, I think that so far, my predictions, I didn't want them to be right, but I think they are right now. And so the question is kind of, what happens next? And look, I'll leave us with this, because as much as I despise Donald Trump, as much as I despise his entire regime, I still love the United States of America. And I would still want, as an American, as much as I despise Donald Trump, just someone in a leadership position who could be clear-eyed and who can stop what's happening right now before it gets worse. And I don't know if the language is I hope and pray or what I could even say. I don't know how to formulate the thought of what I even want here, but I truly wish that even if it was someone I disagreed with so much, there was at least someone who had a scintilla of rationality so that there could at least be a way to address the situation. I mean, look, George W. Bush, horrible, although he looks like a great president compared to Donald Trump. But when we had the Great Recession, as the baton was also handed to Obama, they still brought in really smart people who dealt with these systemic issues, with these subprime mortgages and everything that triggered it. And they figured out ways to very quickly move us away from the brink, even though it was a horrific economic outcome. But I remember those days. I was in law school, that 2007 period. I remember being in my constitutional law class when the markets were crashing. I remember the professor talking to us. I have very vivid memories of it, how Congress would come together in a bipartisan way, and do these bailouts and do these things that were put together a brain trust of smart people and solved the problem that was, and it wasn't, it was really Obama who then kind of really was able to solve it. Frankly, the same way Biden was able to get us out of what Trump did and the devastation caused by COVID, which is a very similar decision-making tree to what we see here with Donald Trump and this disastrous war in Iran. And the Iranians know it. Like, what they know in their psychological assessment of Donald Trump is what we all know in our psychological assessment. They know that Donald Trump makes a bad decision into a worse decision, as I said earlier, a worse decision into a catastrophic decision into one of nuclear proportions. Then he goes bankrupt and he runs away and he blames people. His decision-making is to cover up and to make it worse versus address the problem head on. Because if you wanted to address this head on, you would literally admit right now that this was a massive mistake. You would try to come up with terms. You would try to deal with this, try to settle and calm the markets right now. Maybe take the L, deal with it responsibly, which will have a long-term effect. But you got to fix this, and fixing it requires an admission of the error to begin with, or of the recklessness, I shouldn't call it an error, of the maliciousness that backfired. You have to recognize that that's what this is, because otherwise this is not something that's going to end anytime soon. Iran and Russia and China know that they have Donald Trump by, the imaginary marbles, whatever you want to call it at this point. They've got him by it. And every time Trump's out there and says it's great, the Strait of Hormuz is open, we're doing amazing, that is the wrong thing. That is fatally wrong to do that. You have to confront it. You have to recognize what's happening every night and every day, what's happening with the price of oil right now, what's happening with the markets right now. I mean, I'll take a look at what the latest is on the, on the markets. Let me just take a look right now. Markets today, get a sense of where things closed. Let me take a look. You had, the Dow was down 739, 1.5%. It's now at 46,000. Remember when she was saying it was 50,000? If you invested when she was saying it was 50,000, you lost a lot of money right now. NASDAQ was down nearly 2%. S&P was down, about a 1.5% today. I'll take a look right now at the oil markets right now. What's the crude price right now? Yeah, crude right now, $95 per barrel. And remember on Monday when Donald Trump said the war is going to end soon? Remember he pulled that? The war is going to end soon. We're putting our ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Things are going to be great. And remember, oil went down to like $80 a barrel or $79. It was like, wow, things are going. I remember that Monday I was thinking on Sunday, as I was looking at the futures, oh, we're screwed. This Monday could be a Black Monday. This could be devastating. And then I taught at USC. I came out and I looked at the market. I'm like, wait, the market's up and oil's down. That's good news, but how? Oh, Trump lied. He did what he lied. Oh, and then the energy secretary posted on Twitter that we were escorting ships with our Navy, which was false. And then also made the oil and people like lost billions of dollars. Like the hell is going on? Like the hell is going on? And now the market is saying, oh my God, this is not going to end. This is not going to end anytime soon. And there really isn't. And Trump's decision making is just like COVID. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. Don't worry. It's going to go away. By Easter, we're bending the curve. It's fine. It's great. And then when it's remember what he said at the end of his term? What do you give yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? What do you say, an 11 or an A+? Right? It's like what he's saying now. He says he got a 15. He said the war is won and he gives himself a 15 right now. Come on. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Right? This is what's happening right now. I'll say this. We are close to 7 million subscribers here on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. We're very close to 7 million subscribers already. We shot right past 6 million subscribers. Take a look. Subscribe. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. So double check. Become a member right now. If you like what we're doing here, join, become a member. Go to store.meidastouch.com. That's where we've got all of our Meidas gear. So check out the store.meidastouch.com. What else do I want to say? Substack, MeidasPlus.com. Check out our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. Tell people about this network. Word of mouth is great. So, you subscribing to the YouTube channel is free. Some of the other stuff are paid memberships. No worries if you can't do that. I know economic times are hard. We'd love for you to do it, but do what you got to do. But spread the word about this network. Like after this ends, send this live to 5 people that you know who may not know about the MeidasTouch network. There's, we've had about 25 to 30,000 people watching this live the entire time. So just send it to people you know and tell them, hey, you should watch this. Give it a try. You may not be political, but give Ben on Breaking News a try and you'll learn a lot. Just do that for me. Let's see the blue heart emojis if you're going to do that. Blue heart emojis if you're able to do that when the show ends. Reach out to 5 people who you think may not know about the network and you'll send them a text. The blue heart emoji means we have a binding contract with each other. Anyway, it doesn't have to be a binding contract. It could be a non-binding one. It's fine. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. And if you want to have some levity throughout all this craziness, you can go back and watch my impressions of Trump's cabinet. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Ben on Breaking News. Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.